So this is from my Prayer by Gandhi book. I've been reading it for the last 7 months. But he writes that the divine mind is unchangeable, but that divinity is in everyone and everything, animate and inanimate. The meaning of prayer is that I want to evoke that divinity within me.
Hi, I'm Corrin. This podcast is called The Ache, an ode to the existential ache of being human, that still small voice tugging inside every single one of us, prompting us to change, move, grow, become more of our authentic selves. This is conversations with people who dance with the ache.
And the reason I love that is because when we think about a God, he is not a separate person to us. He is not a different entity, someone that we have to really talk to, because the truth is we have that inside of us. So when we're praying, we're triggering and setting a fire in our authentic self. We're actually igniting the divinity within us. We're speaking to ourselves, but to our true self.
That is the voice of Freeman Voyles. I came across her Instagram when a friend of mine sent it to me, knowing my background with faith and religion. And I had such a positive response to her page. Even though, there's a lot of views that she and I do not share, and we have a lot of differences of opinion, I was absolutely taken aback by her work that she's doing and how authentic she's presenting herself on her page. And for me, coming from the culture of Christianity, I knew how radical what she's doing and what she's saying is for, a lot of folks in that community. And so I really respected that and wanted to meet her and get to know her. And we started chit-chatting and DMing on Instagram. And then I invited her on the podcast. And yeah, this is our conversation. To me, as you know, I was raised religious. And so for me, a lot of religious themes and Christian themes are still in my life today. Mm-hmm. And a big thing for me that I took away, even though I'm no longer in the church, a big thing that I took with me is that concept of like God within you.
Yeah. And
God outside of you and also within you. And when I return to like the Bible, for me, what I see is like, this is my interpretation for me, is that it's like a metaphor for me becoming more authentic and me tapping into that God within. So I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think we have a lot of intimidating imagery when we think of God. But if we think about God as being our true self, our true resting place, that makes it a lot more approachable.
I love that. I think it's a perfect jumping off place. So I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about, what you're doing online, as much as you feel comfortable talking about, in terms of like what inside of you spurred that? What made you want to go out there and start putting yourself out there? And if you want to give the listeners just a little background about what you're doing and the space that you've created.
Yeah, so my Instagram/podcast is called Neutrality. It's spelled with a K, Kneu. I am coming at the worldview that I do from a Catholic perspective. I love my faith. It has probably saved my life. I'm a little bit of a later convert. I am doing something very different though, but something that is still 100% true to my Catholic faith, but it's a part of my faith that has not been unveiled. And it's the true conversation around sexuality. Our faith is not averse to it. Our faith is not scared of sexuality, but we as individuals are very quiet about it. And I think if we had a better sense of God's plan for sexuality, and that it's passionate. His plan is that we have passionate sex. His plan is that we have good sex. His plan is that we have sex often. Like, all of those very, very good and true things need to be unleashed. And the reason that I feel passionately about it is because I am in Christian spaces, and I can watch my friends and fellow Christians say that there's no reason that a man and woman should want to be together outside of marriage. Blows my mind. And it makes me so sad and scared for a generation of sexual creatures that wants to also know a God. And if they're told that they can either be in touch with their sexuality or know God, and they can't do both, like, what do you think they're gonna do? Where are they gonna go? So I'm really interested and invested in creating a world that understands sexuality, is not afraid of the conversation, is not afraid of talking about the human body, but in a way that points to its creator.
I love it. I mean, that's why as we were talking before we started recording, that's why I was so drawn to your page, because, you know, for me, I always saw, when I was still in religion and deeply, you know, invested in that and considered myself a Christian in the sense of the word. I don't know how much we've talked about this, but I was raised United Reformed Christian, so not Catholic, Protestant, but the Bible was always so erotic to me. Like, there's so many sexual stories. There's so many stories about,
oh my gosh, incest,
Lot's daughters. Yeah,
I know.
And then you're told, like, oh, but you're not supposed to have sex, and you're not supposed to be thinking about these things. And so for me, that was my biggest, and I know you listened to my intro episode, so you know, like, that was my biggest clash with the church, was around me being someone that, you know, was like, I actually think this is really important for me to be doing, and not within, you know, the confines of marriage, which is something that is important to people of faith. Obviously, I know that's something that's important to you, but I was so drawn to your page because I was like, I think this is really important. And I think people who are not in the church don't understand how controversial it is to be talking about things the way you're talking about them.
And that leads into, like, my personal experience with this, like, going from macro to more like micro. There is always going to be that voice. And Satan is so good at what he does. He knows that, like, he can tell me that my relationship with God is not enough, and, like, what I'm doing is causing harm, and what I'm doing is confusing people or inviting lust. A lot of people say that I invite lust because I don't wear a bra, or because I talk about sex, and because I, you know, post about how much I love men. Like, a lot of people say that God is not pleased with me. And as somebody who loves talking about, like, those personal experiences and, like, how we dance with the ache, like, that's how I dance with the ache, is hearing those voices, but also having to rest with the ache that tells me, like, you are doing good, you are helping people, you are having really good conversations. I mean, I've helped people, like, turn away from, you know, prostitution, turn away from porn addictions, turn away from, you know, hookups, like, and it's not a no to that. It's like a yes to what's possible for them. So yeah, so that's how I dance with the ache, is hearing people use my faith against me, but also having to listen to that still small voice that is quiet when the other voices get so loud, you know? So you're right, it is controversial. It's tough. It's really controversial.
And it's so funny because, like, obviously, you know, you and I are in two very different worlds, right? So, like, I feel for me that I can look into the world that you're in and understand, even though I wasn't raised Catholic specifically, there's a lot of things I don't understand about Catholicism specifically. However, I do understand, you know, that to me, what you're saying, you know, when I hear you talk, I'm like, yeah, of course, like, you're right. It makes perfect sense. But my world, you know, in terms of my relationship with sexuality, I came from, you know, that background and then went to where I am now, where like a lot of my work in the world is a celebration of that, a celebration of lust, an invitation for lust for everyone. And that's celebrated in my world, and how not celebrated it is in Christianity. Have you seen the movie The Starling Girl?
No.
I think you would love it. I think you would love it. There's a whole thing about her bra strap. It's about a young girl like coming of age with her sexuality.
Wow.
And there's a scene where her bra strap is showing, and it becomes such a big, the women are pulling her aside, whispering to her about it. Oh my God, your bra, like tuck that away. Like, oh my God, you know. And I have had other people watch the movie and they don't get it. They're like, oh, that's weird. And I'm like, no. Like, you don't understand how much of that is put on women, and like how natural our body is, and how somehow suddenly showing our nipple or our bra strap when men can walk around with their shirts off, like somehow we're inviting lust, ? Like, come on now.
I know. I mean, I've really struggled to ask myself, what is the balance? Like, am I ever encouraging sin? Am I ever inviting sin? And I do think that for the most part, like, I'm not mad at the bar across the street for being open, even though I might struggle with drinking. It's like the bar isn't tempting me by being across the street and being open. It's how I look at the bar. It's how I go in, and, you know, what I do in that bar that is the problem. It's not the fact that it exists that's the problem and something to be blamed. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, because I think from my perspective, a lot of, because the circles that I run in are extremely liberal, extremely like, you know, open, sex work positive. Like, that's how I am. I'm someone that is very pro, just like people doing whatever the fuck they want, essentially. And I think a lot of the views in my circle from people who don't understand Christianity, they think, oh, Christians, and I think this is true maybe for like people that I know, maybe from my past or people in my family, Christians like want to eradicate things that they don't like, or like they just want to get rid of things they don't like. And I think that can be so true. And I've seen it on your page in terms of like, you're just doing you. You're just doing you. And it's beautiful to see. And I love to see it. And then I see the comments and I'm like, oh, it's because you're in that Christian circle that you're getting, I think the hate comments are people telling you like, you're inviting these negative things, and you're like, the bar's just open, baby. Like, you don't have to drink it.
Exactly. And like, I think especially about the Catholic faith, and it's interesting when you're in these circles, you see differences between Catholics and Protestants, and Catholics especially. I mean, we have like the Michelangelo, we have like all these depictions of sexuality in faith. And so this is not a new thing that Catholics have been wrestling with particularly. So majority of my hate does come from Protestants. I mean, if you go into like a Catholic church, you'll see Mary breastfeeding Jesus. That's not really a problem. But for some reason, like a young person that's alive breastfeeding is somehow like not acceptable. And so it's like we have to square that circle of our faith embraces sexuality, but we don't embrace sexuality in the day-to-day. And that's where the rubber isn't meeting the road, you know?
Yeah. For you said you're a late convert. Can you tell me a little bit about that? So you weren't raised Catholic?
No. I mean, my grandparents were Catholic, but I hate to say it, like, you know, I'd go with it to, you know, I'd have questions for them and they didn't really have too many answers. So they kind of planted the seed, but I was like 100% on my own for what I did with that seed, you know? So I, in high school, like had several boyfriends. Definitely. I mean, I'm not quiet about the fact that I've had sex before marriage. I've done the things like.
But you're married now, right? You're married now?
Yeah, I'm married now. Yeah. But I try not to create any kind of persona that like I'm perfect and don't struggle with the same things that everybody else does. So I was 16. I just felt like, I really felt like there were like two paths in front of me. Like one path being a little bit more like, I mean, I dealt drugs in high school, like I did all the things, and that was like a path that was in front of me, and there was another path of like, you know, or I could, get in touch with my authentic self, get in touch with the divinity, the divine part of me, and really nourish that. So that's what I did. So every weekend in high school, I went to confession and was like, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. I gave someone a blowjob. And that was my life every single week for like years until I was able to like get a grip on what I was doing. Because I think people think that conversion is something that happens overnight, and like I can't express enough that this is a long process. Like, and it was a long process for me, and I'm still converting every day. I'm still getting closer to that divinity, or I'd like to think I am, you know? So I wouldn't say my conversion is over by any means.
Still in process.
Totally.
What is your connection, or like, I don't want to say the bar, because I feel like that makes it like a measurement. That's something that can be met or not. So I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. I'm just wondering, what's your measure or your like connection with that divinity? Like, how do you see yourself closer to it, or what gives you that sense that you're closer to it or engaging with it deeper?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, during times of like confusion, during times of like, I've told my husband this, like with the podcast and with the Instagram account, like I feel like I'm blindfolded and I'm literally having to like listen to like Marco, you know. I feel like I'm like going through this test of like, I'm blindfolded, there are no lights on, and I'm like in a black room just like trying to like listen to that voice. And it's in this podcast, it's in this Instagram that I'm forced to like shut out the noise, be quiet, and like lean into that. So this has been a really, really good time of trial for me, and it's forced me to follow that voice that is inside of all of us. So yeah, the way I navigate my relationship with God is being quiet, being still, and having that compass that can tell you like where he is, and if this voice is from him, if that's not from him, if that insult is from him or not from him. If somebody says, you know, I'm a whore, like, would Jesus talk to me like that? You know, even if he felt like I was misguided, that's not from him. And so I have to have that like compass of like, who is this from? And it's in that darkness, dare I say, that he gets a little bit brighter and a little bit closer to me. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. So what I'm hearing you say is your bar of measurement, or your, again, I hate to say that, but because I don't have any other image coming to mind, is from within you, and from within your sense of truth and your sense of resonance with the divine. I think that's beautiful, because I grew up in a church that was very catechism focused. I mean, we were Protestant, but like I went to catechism. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of like, it was about learning definitive answers to every question based on the teachings of the church that I was raised in. And there we believed in predestination, believed in God's elect, believed in like all these things, right? And so for me to exit, I mean, I was raised that way. I exited the church, and then I came back as an adult for a few years. And then I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. My spirituality lies somewhere else. But the hardest thing for me was like, because the way that I'm hearing you experience your relationship with God is the same way that I experience my relationship with what I would call like God or spirit or the universe or my higher self, whatever, just that thing. And it's the exact same for me. It's like what is resonant inside of me and what is coming from love and not from fear. But for me, learning to do that meant I had to leave faith, because I was taught to look outside of myself. I was taught to look to the leaders of the church to tell me what was right or wrong. And these were people that I didn't trust, you know?
Yeah. And it's impossible to convince someone like of how to do that and how to have that internal compass. It's impossible. And I can tell, like, when I'm talking to someone who, like, like maybe the church leaders you've seen, and it's like, I know that you don't have that. Like, I don't know, you're just not in, you can tell when someone's not in touch with that sense of divinity and like right and wrong. And it's not, and that's the part that's so difficult as Christians. It's not something that I guess is regulated. It's not something you can write down. It's not something that's like rules. It's not right and wrong. It's just like, it's just love or not. Gosh, I don't know how, and like, how do you write down love? How do you regulate love? How do you make love a law? And
I think maybe you don't need to. And like,
exactly.
Or this is my POV, is like, everything is okay, I'm going to cry saying this because I think it's so true. I think everything is an expression of God, of love. And it's what is right for you and what is right for your path. And like, for someone, you know, their right might look to someone else as very wrong. And I think where we go wrong as humans is looking at other people and trying to tell them I bumped my mic, that's wrong, that's ungodly, that's not right, versus just looking at ourselves and being like, okay, what's my relationship with that divinity and that ache in me? And like, I need to follow that. And I think I'm the happiest when me and everyone else around me is allowing one another just to be ourselves and not casting judgment on each other. And like, I don't know, it's genuinely why I was so excited to see you doing your thing. I was just like, let's go.
Yeah, and it's like, because we're not God. So for me to say ever, that like God thinks this about you, I mean, it's blasphemous. Like, it's so unacceptable, because I am not God. I could never say like, this is what God thinks of you and your journey. This is what he's like, no. Like, all I'm trying to do is like encourage us to live closer to like that love and that divinity. So you're so right. Like, there's nothing in our journey that can't bring us closer to that God and that love. And that, even if it's like war or something like terrible and like evil and sad, there's nothing in our journey that cannot be used for good. And so who am I to say that your journey is wrong when it's just different than my journey? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love it. So I'm curious, like, we talked a little bit about why you started the Instagram, because you were saying like you felt, you know, like you wanted to talk about that the conversation around sexuality and bodies online. But like, I'm curious if you would be willing to talk more about that, just your own, you know, have you always been interested in that? Has that always been a part of your life? Is it one of those things that was waiting to come forward for a while, or did you like suddenly make the decision to do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, okay, I didn't actually plan for the Instagram or the podcast to be so focused on sexuality. Like, the truth is, that was a huge part of it, but I really just wanted it to be a holistic space that we can talk about politics, society, life, relationships. And it happens to be that sexuality is something that's really sticking. But I created the account because I saw a lot of, you know, like, politics, like this whole world is just so divided and sad. And like, I actually made an episode called How My Sexuality Impacts My Vote. And that was so much fun, because my point being that sexuality impacts every decision we make, because as sexual creatures, our desire for union with others, our need for union with others is sexual, because like, it's union, you know, with another person, with another group. And so my point was always to make sexuality more than what happens in the bedroom. Like, and so because of like seeing the ways that politics have hurt our society so much. It's hurting relationships and families. The church is hurting relationships and families, God knows. Seeing that, it was only natural that the conversation pointed towards sexuality. Does that make sense?
It does. I love what you're saying about union too, like as a concept, because sexual union and to be that close with someone, like, and to actually in the biblical, phrase, to know someone is what it would say, like in certain versions of the Bible, right? To say you've known them is to say that you've been with them sexually. And I think that we are, like you said, I do think the world is very divided. There's a lot of like, if you don't agree, I have many people in my life who, if they don't agree with someone, they won't interact with them. And to me, I'm just like, that's wild. And also one of the reasons I wanted to have you on my podcast, and like, we're not talking about the things we disagree on, but like we do, but I still want to talk to you and I still want to know you. And like, I'm curious about you, because I crave union, as a human in all senses. I read this book called I Remember Union, and it's what it is it's not biblically based, but this woman like channeled the spirit of Mary Magdalene and like wrote this book. And
oh my gosh, I love her.
Literally, I could not, like, I swear I would like have like remnants of Mary Magdalene in my past lives or some shit, but like
totally same. Totally.
I could not stop crying. My friend recommended me the book. My friend who just had her second child, but had her first child, and she, I think, read this book when she was pregnant with her first child, and she was just like, you need to read this, like, Corrin, like, this is gonna like move you. It took me so long to finish the book because I didn't want it to end because it was so like deep. But it's all about the concept of union of souls like beyond life. And it's about Jesus. It's about Mary Magdalene and her relationship with both Judas and Jesus in the book. Wow. And her, like, in the book, she like gets married to Judas, and then and has this like emotional relationship with Jesus. She marries Judas, but has like an emotional relationship with Jesus that is sexually charged, but not sexually fulfilled. They're never physically sexually together. But they like have energetic sex in the book, almost like, because they are like doing healing work together. I mean, it sounds it was such an amazing book. I literally would cry on every page because she keeps talking about like, I remember union, and like, I know what it's like to be in union as a soul. And it's all about them remembering what they came to earth to do, and her and Mary, Jesus's mother, remembering that they have to, like, when Jesus is on the cross and when Jesus is going into the grave and then being resurrected, they are in communication with the divine. They are holding the space and praying and like channeling energy to him, and like being there and being the vessel of like part of his resurrection, and their role amazing in the resurrection. And so anyway, it's just like, when you were talking about like the craving of union, I was thinking about that book and the scenes where like her and Jesus are close, but they're not sexual, but they're like can feel each other's energy and are running that energy to each other. And it's like better than sex because they're close and sharing a mission.
Yeah, you're gonna die. There's I think you may have heard of this, like a sculpture, or I don't even know who it's of, but it's of someone from the Bible, or maybe a saint. She's in like heavenly ecstasy, and it's like she's like praying, but she has like a face, like you can tell she's in like ecstasy, but it's because she's like so deep in prayer that like she's having an orgasm. It's insane. And another thing I talk about a lot is like the ways that Jesus may have been tempted. And that, I mean, is so, to say that Jesus was tempted at all, I'm like, it's true, he was tempted. He was a human being. Like, that is so controversial. So I even like dared to say he could have been tempted by like, by a woman or by a man. Like, he totally could have been tempted. And doesn't that make him all the more cool that he knows our temptation and was able to overcome it, and like gives us that strength too. So yeah, I love the way that you're describing like the biblical experiences of the people in those experiences. And what must that have been like the day to day, or how did they channel that divine energy when it was right in front of them? And how can we do that living in 2,000 years later, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love so many biblical stories and metaphors, and like to me at this point in my life, like I see it as this metaphorical, you know, thing that I can access now and that I can be a part of like in my day-to-day life. I just had a reading with a psychic actually, and she was telling me, she was like, you need to get into your biblical stuff again. She was like, you need to like commune with the energy of Jesus. She was like literally in her reading, and she was like, I've never felt Jesus in a reading before, but he's here. And she was like, and he's like wants you to know he's here for you. I was like, I love that guy. I like have a long standing relationship with that guy. So
love that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like truly, I shouldn't say I wish, because I don't. I think everything is happening perfectly in my life, and I'm happier than I have ever been in my life, spiritually. And that involves me having, you know, my own, you know, faith that I've basically cobbled together of like shit that works for me. But a big part of it is Christianity. A big part of it is my love of Christianity. And, you know, there's a reverence and an irreverence in me for it, in a way of like, and it's like an undulating thing that changes all the time, but it's because it was so big in my upbringing. It's so big in my heart now.
Yeah, it should be dynamic. Our faith should be dynamic. It should be different. I love reading Prayer by Gandhi, even though I mean, he says that God doesn't want praise. I'm like, well, I don't know. Anyway, so there's a lot of stuff that like I would love to like have talked with him about. But yeah, like it should be dynamic. We should be able to take parts of, you know, everyone. Because if we believe in one God, like, then that means there is God in Gandhi. There is God in anybody else that may not look and pray the way that we do. Yeah. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Can I ask you, like, going back to the Instagram, because I remembered I wanted to ask you this, like, how do you deal with the backlash? Like, how does that affect you? Do you feel affected by that? I imagine you would. Yeah, I do. I really do feel affected by it, because I take this work like so seriously. I mean, anytime I gain one follower, I'm like, that's more responsibility. That's more responsibility. God is giving me more responsibility, and with more power comes more responsibility. I take it very seriously, and my biggest fear is leading someone away from love or truth. And I get comments all the time that that's what I'm doing, and that terrifies me. And that's like my most vulnerable like part of my heart, is that's my weakness. And like, that's what people tell me I'm doing. That's what people will continue to tell me I'm doing. So how do I deal with it, I guess, is just, like trying to listen to the still small voice. And as long as I know that I pray every day that God would guide me, like I can rest well knowing that even if that looks weird, even if that doesn't make sense to 90% of the people that come across my account, it does make sense for 10% of them. And if that's where God wants me to focus in on and not listen to the 90%, I can rest at night knowing that I invited God into that. Even if I messed up and I stumbled, or I hurt someone, or somebody thought I was saying something that I wasn't, or I was misunderstood, I can rest at night knowing that I've at least invited God into that space. Whether or not he's here, whether or not he cares, whether or not he hears, whether or not he exists, I can rest well knowing that I've invited him into that. And that's all I need. I think that's beautiful, because if you think about, the stories in the Bible about Jesus, pretty much everybody was telling Jesus that he was doing something that was not right. And he, in terms of like outside of his followers, he was seen as like a deviant figure by certain, other people around him who were like that.
Totally.
Leading people away from the truth. So, not to compare you to Jesus, but I'm gonna. I think, it's similar to what you're doing or what anybody else is doing when you're being true to yourself and it looks a little bit different than the culture that you're in or a little bit different than what people around you are doing. As long as you're living true to yourself, at least this is my point of view, like you are leading people towards truth because you're writing them a permission slip to be more of themselves. You're writing them a permission slip to listen to that voice inside of them because you're modeling that. And
wow, that means a lot. That really does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. I think it's true for anyone in any space. Is like we are attracted to people, I think the most attracted to and angry at people who are being embodied and living their truth because you're mad because you're not, this is an oversimplification, but I think sometimes people are mad because they want to, something inside of them wants to live
I know
that authentically and they're not letting themselves,
I know. I think about that. I'm like, okay, you don't follow me, but you manage to DM me every day. Like, I'm living in your head rent free. My tits are living in your head rent free right now. Like you say I'm the one with the problem. I have all these things I want to say, and like you're so right. Like I do wonder. And being a woman in this space talking about sexuality is 1,000 times harder than being a man talking about sexuality. So I do wonder if there's like a level of attraction or jealousy or whatever that is making this like so triggering for people, and when it should be freeing, Yeah,
and that's why when I hear you say like, I hope or that you don't want to hurt people or this or that, and I'm like, I think here's the thing. We're going to hurt people that want to be hurt, even if we have the best intentions in the world. Certain people will find a way to personalize that and make it about them. And, even if you're like literally bending over backwards and giving someone the shirt off your back, they could be like, I wanted the blue shirt, and you're like, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I remember, it's funny that you say like Jesus was also very controversial and misunderstood. I remember I had a friend's dad. No good story starts with my friend's dad. My origin lore, which I'll tell you later, but keep going. Oh my gosh. What is with friends' dads? Messaged me saying that like my vote for Harris was completely unacceptable, that he did not think I was right. He thought that I was straying from the Lord because I voted for Harris. And I remember messaging him like, okay, Jesus didn't waste his time trying to explain himself to people that had no intention of understanding him. And so neither will I. And that was where I left it. And then of course he said, well, and you're comparing yourself to Jesus right now, and that's blasphemy, and And so
what is it with the friends' dads?
What is it with the friend? And the thing is, this friend does not know. To this day, I haven't told her that he did that because I'm just like, I can't give this any more energy than I've already given it. And she loves her dad, and I love that for them. But oh my gosh,
there's always somebody trying to tell. Yeah, listen. When I was younger, I was separated from my two best friends. We got caught going to a club. I mean, we had been doing a lot of stuff, but we got caught sneaking out and going to a club and drinking, etc. I somehow got blamed in the whole ordeal, which was fine because their parents were significantly more strict than mine were. And so, I mean, we were all in trouble, but like, I definitely took the brunt of that from her parents' point of view. And her dad wrote my parents a letter about me. I'm 15 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And at some point in the letter, he said she's laughing at God with her boob out. One boob.
Whoa. What?
Yeah, he was like, so I have like a secret, I think you heard my episode, so I have like a secret Instagram account, and like the bio is literally laughing at God with my tit out.
I love that. Yes, own it. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I loved to like. I mean, I had boobs. Like, I was very skinny, but I had some boobage on me. You know, when I was a teenager, and man, I was working that for all it was worth, because I don't know if you remember. I don't know how old you are. I think you're younger than me, but we had this bra that was the Victoria's Secret like angel bra or something.
Oh yes.
Do you remember this bra?
Yes.
It was like it brought your cleavage to your chin.
Yes.
And I would wear that, and so I'm sure that's where that came from. Was she was always in that fucking bra? I'm like, sir, are you looking at my breasts?
on my 15-year-old Brett, like, oh my gosh, these people, it blows my mind, and they will, until the day they die on the hill that you and I are the problem.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I did you go to like what's it called, like purity class when you were young, or no?
No, I didn't. So that's a benefit of not being raised in the faith. I did not have to listen to this BS. No.
Yeah, it was the like don't tempt men. No. Oh my God, a formative experience for me was I was in a bikini at like a family camping trip or something. You know, like whatever. I'm like 13. I'm just wearing a 2-piece swimsuit, whatever. And my male cousins had been taught to like cover their eyes if they saw like a sexy image of a woman, or like and there was like, we were showing pictures on the projector that we had taken of the weekend, and like one came up of me like in my swimsuit, and my like cousins covered their eyes. 12 or 13-year-old me is like, oh, I'm like bad, like, oh right, like,
gosh.
Oh
my gosh.
Yeah, it's such a big part of my like culture. My parents didn't perpetuate it as much, but it was like more when I was at church, or like my cousins, you know, were significantly more religious than I was, so it was like that vibe. But yeah, it's this weird thing of being like, your body existing is problematic, and
yeah, or it's my object, and I will do whatever I feel like I want to do to it, because it's an object, and it's either a bad object or it's an object for my benefit.
Yes, absolutely. So listen, I fell in love with what you were doing on your IG. It was an immediate follow, and even though like I said, we don't share a lot of the same views on certain things, and like I don't care, because I'm still interested in what you're doing. And I'm like, I love to see you being authentic.
Oh my gosh, I love what you're doing as well. It's so much fun. I love you've started doing, but like your graphics are cool. You've got like this like kind of meme happening as well with some of these. I love it. It's so good. It's really cool to watch you, listen to what you're doing. Yeah, I would love to get more into it with you later on, and more talk and like wrestle. But for now, like I'm loving this.
For me, like, I don't feel the need to, like I was saying before, like, I'm not a debater. I'm not much of a debater, because I'm like someone that's like, if that's what works for someone, I'm like, please, like, go forth, do it, you know, like. Yeah,
totally. No, I didn't even really mean debate, but like, it's so much fun to highlight the ways that people are different, and like.
And think about them, talk about them.
Talk about them, because I think there's not much of that in the world. There's not much like honest, like, let's have a drink and like talk about all of this in a fun, lighthearted way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always curious too, because, you know, I know my family still shares like a lot of certain views, and I don't talk to them about it because it gets too charged, you know, because I'm their child and sibling, and so I'm like, I don't want to like create tension for them, so it would be more fun to talk to someone like you, or like someone else where there's no history. We don't it doesn't matter to me what you do with your, you know?
Totally,
exactly. But yeah, like,
thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you for being willing to come on. I think this was great. Do you have any other burning things you want to share or speak on?
No, I want to have you on though, on my podcast, because I think you have a lot to say. I think
your listeners are going to hate it, but I would be thrilled to come on.
No. My listeners are a very diverse, wild crowd. I have many like gay Catholics, which doesn't like, they're not out of the woodwork yet. I have a lot of like non-religious people. I have a lot of spiritual people. I have a wild group, which means I get hate from everyone, which is fun. But they would love to hear from you. They would love it. I've already told many people that I'm like talking to you, and I'm like, this is her podcast, this is what she's doing, and they're already like 100% on board. So
I love it.
This would be good.
Be thrilled. I would be thrilled to come on. That would be fun.
Yay. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I will be linking. What an amazing conversation with Freeman. If you've listened this far, thank you so much for listening. I think in this time, particularly when there is a lot of division and we have social media and we have all of these platforms that we're communicating through, and I think there's something so powerful about having a face-to-face conversation with someone that you don't agree with entirely. And I think the focus of the conversation can so easily go to our differences as people, or wanting people to align with your views entirely to keep them in your life. And for me, that's just not interesting to me. And it's also something that I don't think will help unite the world moving forward. And I think Freeman and I have more similarities than differences. And I think had we focused the conversation on our differences, I wonder if, we would have left that conversation feeling much differently, but we didn't. And even when they came up, I think so much of it is just interesting. It's interesting to hear how someone else thinks and feels and what they believe. And, it doesn't have to be threatening to your worldview. At least that's how I've been thinking and trying to open myself up. Because for me, for a long time, I wasn't interested in talking to people of faith or people in the Christian faith. And it was just too triggering for me because of my history with the church. And I'm so glad that we had this conversation. I'm looking forward to going on her podcast, and I'll link all of that below. But after we finished our conversation, Freeman sent me a video, and I loved what she said so much that I wanted to include it here. So here's the audio from the video that she sent me.
Okay, yeah, I had a lot of fun too. And I wanted to tell you something, and you can post this or not post this, but I feel so much more honest with myself talking to you about the things I don't know about the world and God and truth and love than when I talk to my Christian friends about what we think we know. Because there's so much more that I don't know, and being somebody that people kind of go to for spiritual advice, I mean, it's way more honest of me to sit here and talk to you, somebody that we're very different, to talk to you about the things we don't know than for me to talk to somebody about what I think I know. It's just funny. Food for thought.
Thank you for listening to The Ache. This podcast is produced by myself, Corrin Evans, and Alexis Murphy. All the music you hear is original compositions by my friend Peter Colombo. All other pertinent information will be linked in the show notes, and thank you for listening.